Hello, welcome back to Too Many Books. My name is Sean, and today I want to ask you, have you seen this robot? This one right here? I want to talk to you about Neom by Lavie Tidhar. This edition that I'm showcasing in the video is the signed limited edition from PS Publishing. But there's also, I believe, an unsigned edition from PS Publishing, in addition to trade editions wherever books are sold. So this one has a nice little slipcase here. Love the printed slipcase. It's absolutely stunning. Kind of like nice little advertisements or wanted posters on it. I adore it. But anyways, I'll talk more about this edition after we talk about the novella itself. So I would consider Neom a novella. I mean, we're at 150 pages in here, although, whether it's a long novella or a short novel, that's up to you. Neom takes place in the world of Lavie Tidhar's Central Station. But you don't need to have read Central Station in order to read Neom, which is great because I haven't read Central Station, and I still enjoyed the hell out of Neom. So this is a futuristic world. I mean, it is Earth. It's not necessarily another world. It is a Earth in the distant future when humanity has kind of up and left for the stars, Central Station being quite a big hub for international travel. But near Central Station is the thriving city of Neom, which is a futuristic society where people are interacting with robots on a daily basis. Crime seems to have pretty much been eliminated to the part where the Shurta, as listed here on this wonderful wanted poster, the office of the Shurta are pretty much just handing out littering tickets these days. And Neom, this short little novella, follows several various characters, both in Neom and in the world outside of Neom, as their stories intertwine and they all kind of come back into one central story. So we primarily follow three main characters. Nasir, who is one of the officers from the Shurta. Mariam, his childhood friend, and a flower seller, and a young boy named Salah, who is outside of the city in the desert, who has lost his family and is joining a caravan heading for Neom. All three of them are trying to make the best of their life while dealing with outside circumstances, and all of their lives are changed by a piece of machinery. Several pieces of machinery, I should say. In the case of Mariam and Nasir, both who are in Neom, they both encounter a robot. This robot, the one from the wanted poster. He doesn't have a name. He's just a robot. And he has a very chance encounter with Mariam at the start of the novella, when he buys a rose from her. He has a chance encounter with Nasir when Nasir finds him digging up the shell of a golden robot out in the desert. And Salah has his own discovery from out in the desert, which is not quite directly related to the robot, but it will bring all their stories together. And man, this is a nice little slice of life, a slice of science fiction life. Lavie Tidhar, each of these chapters, each of these chapters has its own little heading here, and the novel or novella almost feels like a fix-up novella in a way. You could almost take Mariam's story or Nasir's story or Salah's story, and you could actually kind of make its own short story out of each of them. But what he does here is he kind of intertwines them perfectly, especially in the final act when all of the characters, well, I should say Nasir and Mariam do interact throughout the novella. But their storylines really all come to a head, and Salah's intertwines with them, all within the final act. There is also a terror artist, which is a very interesting method. Terrorism is kind of a thing of the past. Now, terror artists exist, who are individuals who make art out of death. If that sounds kind of morbid and freaky, then yeah, it kind of is. You don't really get too many good examples of terror artists or terror artism within the novella here, but there is a terror artist who is the protagonist of her own chapters that are intertwined. However, she doesn't really start showing up until halfway through, and she doesn't really impact the plot itself, but she fills in gaps and holes with the backstory and the world around it. If you're not familiar with Lavie Tidhar, this is actually not the first time that he has used art and terrorism and art and violence hand in hand. This is not to say that it's a political novella in any way. Lavie Tidhar isn't an overtly political writer, but you can definitely tell that world politics have influenced his writing. He is an Israeli author. He has survived, narrowly avoided being a better phrase to use, terrorist attacks. He was in like the same city as terrorist attacks that have influenced his writing. He has written a novel called Osama over a decade ago, 15 years ago, or give or take, which dealt with a world without terrorism, and central to that was almost like a Philip K. Dick, Man in the High Castle story of, like, what if there was a pulp writer who was creating the character of Osama bin Laden, kind of mixing terrorism and art. The Bookman, the first of the Bookman histories, was a novel in which there was a terrorist who planted bombs in books. So the idea of art and terrorism is not one that is, inherently unique to this story, but it's kind of a reoccurring theme that you receive within Lavie Tidhar's works. But man, one of the things Tidhar does so exceptionally well is his world building. I said it with the Bookman histories. The Bookman histories was a little stunted in terms of plot, or a little stunted in terms of your main character, but the world building was exceptional. He populated this world with other fictional characters. Osama, which was an alternate history novel, was just a fascinating world to dive into. And even without having read Central Station, I loved the world that was presented here at Neom. Yes, it's one of those situations where the stories for each of the main characters might not be enough to carry the novella by itself, but all together, it really shines through. 150 pages, he creates a very good tale that is brought together by its science fiction surroundings of robots buried in the desert, of remnants of long past wars. If anything, I'm a little disappointed with the Langton novella for not having more world building. Neom is supposed to be this futuristic city, but all the characters that you deal with are very much the lower class, the common folk of Neom, which could very well be intentional. It's definitely going to be more interesting, I suppose, to be with the common folk than be with the people in their fancy buildings who, are being served by robots hand and foot. But perhaps more of that is explored within Central Station. I will definitely have to read Central Station after having read this. But man, check out Neom. It's a hell of a tale. You don't need to have read Central Station in order to read this one. I guess if there's only one other complaint I would have about this, it's that the ending wasn't quite what I thought it was going, which is both good and bad. I kind of expected more pertaining to those protagonists. Instead, the last few chapters, those protagonists kind of find themselves on the sidelines, which is fine, if there's a larger narrative that those characters weren't necessarily a part of, so I guess it all makes sense. I don't know if it's in the trade edition, but the edition from PS Publishing does have both an afterword, which details Tidhar's process behind the creation of Central Station and the world building within it. He talks about how he loves future histories, and he loves creating themes and worlds and having multiple works live within those worlds. But what's also very nice is it has a nice glossary in the back, Beyond Neom and A to Z, where it actually goes through and talks about aspects of the culture and the world and the life, which honestly would have been more helpful had I read that prior to the novella, but it works perfectly fine in the back, and most glossaries are in the back anyways with your appendices, so it makes sense to be there. But yeah, if you want a quick but very enjoyable science fiction tale, check out Neom by Lavie Tidhar. I don't like to necessarily compare novels to other novels, but this almost reminded me in a way of The Tempered Steel of Antiquity Grey by Sean Speakman, but better. I mean, I enjoyed Sean Speakman's novel for what it was, which was kind of a almost young adult, by the numbers adventure science fiction tale. But it's almost desert, futuristic wasteland of robots buried in the sand, was, in my opinion, done better in Neom. I mean, Neom it's not as by the numbers per se. I mean, there's definitely, some cliches, but that's going to be the case with every novel or novella ever. But the world building, I think, was superior in Neom, and being a shorter length, I think it was more beneficial as well. But that's not to disparage Antiquity Grey. Antiquity Grey is very much geared towards fans of Red Rising. If you're looking for a Red Rising, you're not going to get it with Neom. You're going to get it with Antiquity Grey. But anyways, this is, as I mentioned, the PS Publishing signed edition. They also did unsigned edition as well as trade editions, which is not by PS Publishing. It's by whomever published the trade edition. But if you are looking for a nice signed edition, this PS Publishing one's pretty nice. It was limited to 200 copies. This is 139. And the absolute best reason to get the signed edition is for this slipcase. I mean, the signed editions from PS Publishing are kind of just fancy trade editions, and they're not even that fancy per se. I mean, they all have smaller trim sizes. They all kind of have like a PVC board as opposed to cloth. But man, I love their slipcases, especially when it's a nice illustrated one like this. I mean, this just goes above and beyond. I absolutely love the slipcase for this. So anyways, that is Neom by Lavie Tidhar, a fun little jaunt through his future scientific world. I highly recommend it if you're looking for a nice, quick sci-fi read. Anyways, thank you guys very much for watching. Please consider subscribing to the channel. I do at least one book review a week, although I've done 2 these past 2 weeks, but they were, some shorter tales mixed in there. I also have plenty of unboxing videos in between here and there for you to check out. So thank you guys very much for watching, and we'll see you around next time.